up with the simple-minded bias.
Some people.
He and I grew up on the same, no, well, at least we lived for years on the same street in Winnipeg. And I delivered newspapers and used to collect for the Herald, the Winnipeg Tribune from the home in which Don lived, and he frequently paid me over the years for the weekly bill of the Tribune, so our hands were in a constant state of interplay and communication. It is a very strange and coincidental business that Don's pals and mine cross so often in such unplanned ways. For example, my first teaching job was at the University of Wisconsin. I arrived there in the year in which Don was getting his PhD, and the quite spectacular circumstances of his degree getting that year were the talk of the town when I arrived from Cambridge.
The house I grew up in Brouped is still around.
And there were about 6 or 8 of us sitting in Howard Gossage's office with McLuhan sitting around a table.
Is that from New Bill?
That's page 135. Butler has a wonderful satire.
Whatever. These are all Manippian satires.
The nature of the material lends itself to it's Manippian satire. All of my work is satire. Manippian satire means just using the everyday world as a satire on itself.
We in the river of mine.
That's what the Manippian satire means. Fry uses the term.
Canadian Film Board movie.
Nori Fry.
Film Board.
Butler has a wonderful satire called Erewhon. It means nowhere, backwards. Erewhon, nowhere. Which means utopia. It's not. Which means utopia. It's not. Which means utopia. It's not. Which means utopia. Which means utopia. It's not.
What's that got to do with narcissism?
Well, it had to. He has a theory about. By the way, Butler it was who argued that technology is the main instrument now of evolution. That the machine accelerates the organic evolutionary process 1,000,000 times.
Mm-hmm.
And that evolution is no longer in the world of nature, but now in the world of technology.
But it always was. If one takes technology as an extension of man, or you do.
Yeah, but on the other hand, it's easy to see that once you've done all this work.
Yes.
Nature disappeared. Nature was hijacked right off this planet. Nature was enclosed in a man-made environment, and art took the place of nature. This was one of the biggest hijack jobs conceivable. When you put a new service environment around, say, TV with hologram or whatnot, you will find that TV has been completely hijacked. That a new service environment has come in. It isn't in yet.
A very serious person. At the same time, over across town, I think in the Hilton Hotel, there was a big meeting run by Dr. Hayakawa, the semanticist. 1,000 people there, and so someone asked McLuhan, what do you think of the Hayakawa conference? So he said, well, I'm sure it's fine.
A rose is a rose is a rose is...
I just want to say that 3 references that have the suffix GER while talking about Gertrude Stein.
A rose. She's doing that tomato can trick of just repeating the same word until you suddenly realize it is not a semantic entity, but an acoustic linguistic entity.
I'm sure it's...
Rapid, by the way, magic is itself a kind of repetition. Rapid, by the way, magic is itself a kind of repetition. Rapid, by the way, magic is itself a kind of repetition. And print is a magical.
We didn't have separate rooms at that time, and we would divide the receivers, and we'd find a very good point in the crystal.
My fish-only cooking podcast, Ahi with Ali.
For a program.
Here's another. Adam Curry is one of the guys that invented podcasting.
Are you still there? Welcome to TELUS Messaging Service.
Now, on the other hand, as I say, I'm getting fed up with the simple-minded bias.
Some people, charisma means looking like a lot of other people, like Cronk.
A touch-tone phone. Please enter the number of the person you'd like to leave a message for, or press the pound key to enter your own mailbox number.
If this is Mr. Richard David James,
are you still there?
Press 1. Thank you. If you are not Mr. Richard David
If you reassure people by resembling a lot of other people they know, approve of, you have charisma. But if you don't have a resemblance to a lot of other people who are socially acceptable,
let's say the Tower of Babel.
First, I might point out that the title, Mass...
Why he is so deeply involved in other people.
Mass A.
It's information.
Can you prove he's wrong? Well, no, not right now, but if you give me some time... Well, that's something we don't have very much of. According to him...
I mean, that's not a figure of speech. I spent $4.50 in a cab going around every pressing establishment in New York City. And valet services at Grand Central everywhere.
What's wrong with the what?
he said to me, I hated this book. I think you'll like it.
Wanted to do a cover on Marshall.
Yeah. Elon Musk talked about it on my podcast.
Church lunch on the top floor and all that kind of stuff, and all the guys, the heads of the departments came in, and he had to do his, dog and pony show and things like that. I was there.
But our lives are actually conducted at mythic.
Find things by deduction.
The etc. editor, the guy from California, Hayakawa. I knew Hayakawa. We used to go fishing together in San Francisco Bay, but it turned out that Marshall had delivered newspapers to his family.
A rose is a rose is a rose is a rose. She's doing that tomato can trick.
In Canada.
As will lead to the understanding of what the sort of thing is that we're concerned with.
Professor Freeze?
Yes. Could you just ready to stop?
Oh, thank you very much.
I had one sentence.
Well, as Professor Freeze was talking, and I was trying to make some connections myself, and one I've got is that it's natural that we should teach the grammar of sex. And I suppose McLuhan will say that sex is the best example of the medium is the message.
Massage.
The massage.
Even Hercules only had to clean the Augean stables once. Even Hercules only had to clean the Augean stables once. 21 times.
Okay, we're back. We're talking
talking with Art Donovan and Paula Panstone and Milt Hinton. Now, look. We were talking about the days when you played and today's. Now, you guys didn't have AstroTurf either.
No.
Is that good or bad? Did you?
Well, I don't know, because the worst field I ever played on was a brand new field down in Louisville, Kentucky. We played an exhibition game against the Cardinals.
Yeah.
And the only thing they had there before the football game was a circus. Now, when you have a circus, you got elephants and the horses.
Yeah.
And the morning before the game, they never even rake the field.
Oh.
So when the offensive team of the Cardinals come out, the defense, we put our hand down on the ground, and you hear a guy holler, "Jeez!" And he'd come up with a handful of elephant dung or horse shit, you know?
Boy, what a thing to wipe off.
I didn't mean to say that.
No, it's also a brand name. That's right. It goes with a character. That's the way.
So they say the defensive line, we could move. So when we move, we flip it at them. And they were hollering at the officials. They're throwing horse shit at us, you know? And the officials, that's all right. They can move. Don't worry about it.
Hey. Now, when you were throwing this horse shit.
Boy, what a thing to wipe off. Boy, what a thing to wipe off. But, you know, these, by the way, this is inherent in TV more than in movie, multiple screens, is because when you have multiple screen, you don't have a storyline. The movie favors storyline much more than TV. TV doesn't need storyline, it's more iconic. It can deal with the separate, unconnected screens much better than...
Now you're referring to Eames IBM, right?
No, I'm not referring to anything, just structure. That the nature of TV favors multiple screens. It is being held to the one screen by movie form. Rearview mirror. What's this one about? I think, where am I going? What's this one?
This is about the Electronic Museum.
Huh?
Read a little of that. This is Alan Schwander.
One of the things... Oh, well, can't talk about everything. No, it's just about two. The Electronic Museum made by whom?
Well, no, this is his idea of what the computer can do to museums.
Yep. Oh, I know. I've been thinking about it.
By the way, we're sending the first Marshall McLuhan care package to Europe.
What's that mean?
Gutenberg Galaxy, Messages Medium, and 4 of your speeches to several photographers who just aren't with it and are kind of stuck.
Oh.
And I'm anxious to use your word to hear what the feedback is going to be.
Well, spare me. I can imagine. The son of a gun, Jerry Stern, is printing a whole batch of violently hostile book reviews of Gutenberg Galaxy and Understanding Media in a book.
Great.
And he's making comments, and I'm making comments on each of the reviews as we go. In other words, we're using these as a means of revealing all sorts of things.
If I were you, I would show up in the Village Voice office some afternoon.
I never read that. I heard about it.
Why don't you just show up there and ask him for the copies? You'd upset that whole damn place. Just it.
But
do that as dessert something.
Okay, I'll do that. Would I need a bodyguard?
No.
No. The guy who wrote that, I assume, was the sort of guy who, one afternoon at NYU when I was on a panel, it was the afternoon I got soaking wet and had to go onto the platform, and the evening with my these clothes soaking wet. I couldn't, Saturday afternoon you can't get any pressing done in New York. Literally. I mean, that's not a figure of speech. I spent $4.50 in a cab going around every pressing establishment in New York City. And valet services at Grand Central everywhere, no home. But this little guy, in between these miseries that I went through that day, he kept barging in, trying to get something from me. And I said, well, look, I'm going to be speaking tonight. And have you read my books? He says, no. Well, I'll be saying a lot of things that are in the books tonight on this speech and so on. Why don't you let that go for an interview? Oh, I guess it made him real mad. But anyway, he was a real nuisance. Boy, he was a nuisance all that afternoon. And because I was in public, there was no privacy. And so I guess this happened as a result. Doesn't do any harm, does it?
Not at all. You ought to thank these guys. Because for a while you were going off there with no blocks, nobody standing in your way, and it was too good to be true. It couldn't happen today. As these guys build up, you'll get stronger. It'll be more fascinating.
You know, one of the amazing things about the computer that it's all now being set to do the old job. Even museums, you see, are merely storage systems. The real power of the computer is as a source of discovery. That is, when by interface you retrieve information at high speeds, you can, by banging various things against each other, reveal all sorts of structural facts about them that were completely hidden before.
Professor McLuhan.
Ladies and gentlemen, greetings from the Dew Line, very distant early warning system. And I'm crammed to the gills with early warnings this evening. I must first explain this outrageous costume. It's not, I wouldn't say it's simple, but there's a very definite reason. All you have to do in order to end up wearing seersucker in the evening is stand on a New York corner on Saturday afternoon looking for a cab in the rain. Then spend 3 or 4 hours going around looking for someone to press your clothes. My clothes, I spent 3 or 4 hours this afternoon getting them wet and trying to find someone to dry them out, and they, around the corner there, are just a mass of wet stuff. That's for the costume. You noticed how Dawn was caressing my hand tonight. I have a deep and sentimental regard for Don Hyco, which he may or may not know about at all.
No hope. But this old guy, in between these miseries that I went...
pitch was going to be.
Hobie, they're changing your image.
Okay.
And the studio says you're escorting Carlotta Valdez to your premiere tonight.
How come? I don't know her.
Studio's arranging it. They're changing your image.
And will not yield representatives, but only freakouts.
I couldn't, Saturday afternoon you can't get any pressing done in New York. Literally. Through that day he kept barging in, trying to get something from me, and I said, well, look, I'm going to be speaking tonight, and have you read my books? He says, no. Well, I'll be saying a lot of things that are in the books tonight on this speech and so on. Why don't you let that go for an interview? Oh, I guess it made him real mad. But anyway, he was a real nuisance. Why? He was a nuisance all that afternoon. And because I was in public, there was no privacy. And so I guess this happened as a result. Doesn't do any harm, does it?
Not at all. You ought to thank these guys. Because for a while you were going off there with no blocks, nobody standing in your way, and it was too good to be true. It couldn't happen today. As these guys build up, you'll get stronger. It'll be more fascinating.
You know, one of the amazing things about the computer that it's all now being set to do the old job. Even museums, you see, are merely storage systems. The real power of the computer is as a source of discovery.
I don't say this is a good or bad thing. I don't even pretend to know. But it disappears under the impact of an all-at-once technology.
People have nothing to say.
Of our world, it's not just people, it's the whole world. I mean, it's our whole culture.
Right there about your style and your famous quote about
I'm writing for a public that will eventually like me. It may be a long time from now, that doesn't matter. Or they may be here now, but they're very few. Doesn't matter. But I don't use any popular acceptance as a standard for what I do. I don't measure myself against acceptance or reputation. I'm not interested in having a reputation.
You think eventually they will recognize you?
My approach has to be used if anybody wants to get hold of anything. It's the only possible way of coming to grips with your time.
When you become completely adjusted to canoe, you're a robot.
You're an extension of the canoe instead of your
It's comical, of course.
It's one of these rubbings of cliches together. The Finn cycle, the Finnegan, and Finnegan.
The night is the world in which the dirty linen of the day gets washed.